Oh man, I have to say something. Years ago, I learned to appreciate whoever was working on the words for everyone on the screen. Does anyone in here remember the days before we were like throwing projections up on the wall whenever we were doing the overhead projector instead? Remember that with all the papers that we'd switch at church because we're trying to be cool, we don't know how to get there yet. Does everyone remember that? Anyone? They put me on that stupid overhead projector. And I was always so stressed out. I hated it. I mean, hated it. I'd stand there and then we'd be singing a song and then I'd start singing. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm the only one singing. And I look and go, this one. Okay. And then I'd start singing and then once again it hit again. It's like, and the entire church is frustrated with me. And they're like, what is his problem? Just pay attention. So let's give James covered last second for Adam. James, thank you so much. If you made a mistake, I didn't even notice. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. A lot of stress can be on a guy for that. Oh, we've been going through the love passage. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's written by Paul. Paul was never married, but we take his great work and we read it at every wedding. Love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast. We're going through that passage, and then we get to a couple of passages that just so happens, I didn't plan this, but it might be perfect for Father's Day. Because there's a lot of fathers that struggle with their temper. But there's different kinds of temper, and this probably might hit everyone today. Is there any hotheads in the room? Anyone struggle with temper? Oh, well, I will admit I do. I've got a temper. It's something I've had to work on. I think if you ask my wife, she might say that I'm so much better than I was. However, it's also been a rough month. So she might go, I don't know right now, okay? She might be on edge here. I struggle with the temptation to let loose and show my anger like everyone. I inherited this trait from my father. And there's one day in particular I remember when my father really just let loose. I was working in the garage with him. That's how every one of these stories start, right? I'm in the garage. We're working on a riding lawnmower. He's thirsty and he said, hey Darren, can you get me a drink? I said, sure. So I leave the lawnmower. I go and I open the door, shut it, I'm right in the kitchen. I get a glass, ice, fill it up. I go over and I open the door. The lawnmower was upside down. My father is standing over it, holding a sledgehammer. He is hitting the bottom of the lawnmower as hard as he can. And I yell out, what happened? And he just stops, looks up at me with those glaring eyes. And then he looks out of the garage and he takes the sledgehammer and he just throws it into the yard and storms off. To this day, I don't know what happened. And it was so fast. Whatever happened, it just flipped. And it flipped when it flipped. I mean, something happened to where he lost his temper. Have you ever lost your temper like that? Are you living with someone who does? Do you have that kind of anger in your life? If so, I hope this message will be somewhat of a blessing for you because God does speak to that. If you were going to develop some great skills in your life, and you are going to be either the best cook ever, bake your cake, your steaks, whatever it is, or you're going to develop a skill to be awesome with money. I mean, you know where to invest and how to, and you can squeeze money out of anything, or if you were going to have this athletic ability or some ability to speak in front of people or to sing or whatever that skill is, or you are going to have the ability to connect with people and the ability to maneuver and have solid relationships for a long period of time, which one should you choose? Because lying on your deathbed years from now, no one's going to be thinking about pies and steaks. You're not going to be thinking about singing. You're not going to be thinking about money. You're going to be thinking about the people you love the most. The people who mean the most to you. And what you need to develop more than anything else is the ability to know how to properly love people in your life. And you may not be able to maintain every relationship. But if you become an expert in love and you learn how to control your temper, your relationships will go so much farther. There are a lot of people that struggle with this. Maybe everyone. But over the years, haven't you watched some that really struggle trying to figure out a church home? And the problem is they can't figure out how to maintain long relationships for a long period of time. And so they go to a church and they end up getting frustrated and angry and bitter, and then they leave and go to another one, and the same thing happens, and they go to another one and the same thing happens, and they go to another one, and they finally are so frustrated at the church, they're like, forget it all. And they can't figure out how do I develop strong relationships, and how can I maintain them? Or how can I maintain a marriage? That's not easy. We act like it's easy, but it's not. It's not. It's hard. How do you connect with someone? How do you maintain a relationship for a long period of time, or to have a solid relationship with your kids? And how do you have a good relationship with your parents when they're nagging you all the time? I mean, how do you do that? If you struggle with the relationships of the people in your house today, don't you think you will 10 years from now? And isn't it going to be healthy for you to learn how can you contribute to a positive relationship with the people you love the most? And so 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I think he covers this well. He gives us 3 expressions. We've been going through it. Love's patient, love's kind. Then we did all the nots. It's not, doesn't envy, doesn't boast. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. And then we get to this. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. And it does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. And so I'm going to take these one at a time and just really explore what they mean. Let's just look at that first one. It says, it is not easily angered. It's not easily angered. Notice, it doesn't say it's not angered. Woo! Good. Because we're probably all going to get angry. And there's times maybe we even should be angry. There's time, I wish the church would get a little more angry whenever we're killing babies in our country. Shouldn't we be angry about things like that? We should. But the point isn't here is that you don't ever have any anger in love. It's that you shouldn't easily get angry. That's not a loving thing to do, to get angry on a fly. Everyone know the superhero Bruce Banner? Bruce Banner's amazing. He's just this normal guy that got hit by gamma radiation. And now he has a powerful force inside of him. Bruce Banner, he's usually trying to not get angry. He's in a dark alley being pushed around by some bullies, and he's trying to warn them, you don't know what you're doing, stop. And then finally, somehow, he always manages to get away so he can transform. And he goes in and goes, and then his eyes start to glare. His skin starts to turn green. His muscles start to fill out his shirt. And then it starts to shred. His clothes begin to rip off his body. His feet pop out of his shoes. And he would be naked, except he also has magical pants. These purple magical pants that have the ability to grow with his body. And he grows really big, and he becomes the Incredible Hulk. And now as the Hulk, he can take on anyone. He goes back into the alley with those bullies and he throws them against the wall. And then he himself just charges through the wall to show that he can. He smashes and he destroys. He's a beast. And he's powerful. And then he starts to calm down. And his skin begins to transform back into, I don't know, what color am I? I guess I'm white. Peach, whatever. And he finally becomes Bruce Banner again. And in the TV show, there's an emotion that he always expresses at that moment. Shame. He's embarrassed because of the way he just behaved, because he had this outlet of anger that destroyed everything in its path. Anger is tempting. And the first warning that we have here in Scripture is be careful, because you might have explosive anger inside of you, and that's never the loving response. It's never the healthy response. And it will always bring shame and disgrace. You end up hurting the people that you have. But the reason it's tempting is because it makes you powerful. It allows you to just get through it. And there is a high that comes with explosive anger. It feels good to lose your cool. But the aftermath of your anger oftentimes hurts the people that you care about the most, doesn't it? The secret is to be able to slow down. The secret is to find the break and to control your emotions and to pause, to yield and to halt. If you can halt and examine yourself, and to not allow your emotions to turn you into this green monster, it will aid you in your relationships so much. Those who are not easily angered often have better relationships. They just do. And we need to look within ourselves and not just blame everyone who's making us angry, but to look at ourselves and go, I need to check myself. You probably have heard me share this before. I'll share it again because it's good for me. And that's to truly halt. H in the word halt stands for hunger. And there's a lot of times I'm angry when actually I'm just hungry. In fact, I have one of my kids. If she's angry, feed her. It's the secret. And she doesn't even realize that what's driving her emotion. She's like, quit touching me. Hey, Noema needs to eat. Go get in the kitchen. Let's get her something. She's going to kill everyone. And once she gets food in her stomach, life is good again. Halt. If you can just pause and examine yourself. Am I just hungry right now? A is angry. Am I angry at someone else and I'm just taking it out on this person right now? Surely you've never done that. Oh man, where mama made you happy or angry, so now you're taking it out on the kid. What did I do? Just pause. Look into yourself. Are you just hungry? Are you just angry at something else? L is lonely. Some people are just lonely and they haven't been around someone, or they're feeling a little neglected, and so they lash out. And they have this explosive anger because they want friendship. And they're lashing out at the very person they want friendship with. T, or halt. T is tired. Whether or not you're just sleeping. My wife and I, our first year of marriage was really hard. We fought a lot for 1 year. And after 1 year, there was one night we were having an argument, and I don't remember what it was. She probably does, of course. I don't remember what it was. I think it was something to do with the TV, like the remote control or something, but I don't remember. I just remember as we're talking, I said, I'm really tired right now. And she said, I'm exhausted. And I said, what if we made a rule that if we're tired, we can't argue. We have to go to sleep. We almost quit fighting. Our sleep habits were so bad that was what was driving our anger. And we're exploding at each other because we were exhausted. Now that I've gotten a little older, I've added one letter to it, to my halt. I've added the letter P. Halt P. Because sometimes I found that I'm only angry because I need to go to the restroom. It's true. And I'll be so frustrated, and I feel antsy, and I'll be exploding at people, and then I'll pause and just halt and go, wait a second. If I just go to the restroom, I'm good again. And just to examine yourself and to slow down, because love is not easily angered. Number 2. Not only is it not easily angered, but it says it keeps no record of wrongs. Notice what it does not say. It does not say love never realizes that it's wronged. Love never is offended. It's that it doesn't keep record of it. It doesn't write it down and bring it up again and again and again. Because not only is there explosive anger in some people's lives, but there's other people that have a different kind of anger. It's chronic anger. It's anger that lasts for a long time. Years ago, I had a good friend who sat down for lunch with me. We sat down and we began to talk about his desire to leave the church. It really saddened me because I'd become good friends with him. I'm like, what's going on? Why are you thinking about leaving? He said, well, Darren, years ago, 7 years ago, you said this at church. Wait, what? I said something? What? I don't remember this. He said, yeah, you said this, and it was like really rude. That was a long time ago. Really? Is that the reason? Well, then there was the program that you started. You started this one program, and I thought we should be focusing on this other area. That was a long time ago, too. That's like 4 years ago. And he kept bringing up issue after issue after issue. And I started counting them. I'm like, I'm running out of room on my paper. There's like 50 things here. And now that there's 50 of them, I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to connect with you. How do you deal with 50 things? It's too many. The only thing I could think to say to him is, I'm going to miss you. And then I left and I thought, well, maybe I could have at least said, can you just forgive me for everything? Maybe I could have done something like that, but I was lost. There were so many issues that had not been dealt with that now we're trying to deal with them and we're playing catch up. And that's what happens in a lot of relationships. If you don't deal with relationships and you keep records of all these wrongs and you never let it go, and it's always in your back pocket, it destroys relationships. It's like the wife that goes into the house. She walks into the kitchen and she goes, oh, I asked him to do the dishes. He already left. Monday, dishes. What's his problem? He gets home, they don't talk about that. Tuesday comes, and she's walking through the living room, and she trips. What's his shoe? His shoes go right here. How far away is this? It's like 2 feet. Oh. Tuesday, shoes. Which reminds me, I didn't write this down. Last Saturday, it's the same thing. Why couldn't he have hit a clothes hamper? It was just a few feet away. Last Saturday. And then the next day, she gets in the car. They're running a little late, and he says, it's about time. About time. Why do you think I'm taking so long? He doesn't even know. I'm doing everything around here. And finally, they go out to the car. And he gets out the next day, and he gets to the car, and he goes, oh, I forgot my wallet. And she turns around and throws the entire book at him. You forgot your wallets because you're irresponsible. You can't do the dishes. You can't put your shoes where they go. You can't put your socks where they're supposed to go. You insult me whenever we're going over here. And he's like, what just happened? And now he has a whole list of things he wasn't expecting. Surely you've never done something like this to someone. Where you keep records of the things that other people do. And you don't deal with it as they come up. You let it brew. You let it stew. And it just keeps getting you angry. There's a rule I have in my life. I do my best to follow it. I haven't been perfect with it, but this is my rule. I do my best to never stay angry for over 24 hours. I can't let 24 hours go by and I'm still mad about something. I've got to deal with it. Because you don't want these things to build up. You don't want to collect them. It'll make your life miserable. All you're doing is punishing yourself for someone else's mistakes. Don't do it. You've got to actually say the words. That's the secret here. You don't take records of it and file it away. Instead, you deal with it one issue at a time as it comes up. And we don't do it because sometimes it's awkward and sometimes it's hard and we don't want the conflict, but there will be conflict. You can't keep filing these things away. You got to talk about it. So you finally have to turn and say, hey, I appreciate the things you do, but these shoes right here, could you remember the dishes? You really need to talk to them one issue at a time as they come up. Because 50 are too much to resolve. Once you get to that point, what do you do now? It's like you're forced to go your separate ways. You're forced to give up on meaningful relationships, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a coworker. You gotta talk about things as they arrive. And number 3, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm reading Paul's list and I'm going helpful, 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 helpful. Well, this is kind of obvious, isn't it? Do you think Paul needed to write this? Hey, just so you know, love doesn't delight in evil. Is there anyone in here that needed to be told that? It doesn't delight in evil. I think we might need to be told that, actually. Because I don't know if we really understand how deadly anger can destroy our lives. And how anger can get into our hearts and cause us to go to some very dark places. I once preached a sermon on anger. The service was over. Everyone was filing out the church, and one man was making his way towards me to the front. You always know something's up if you're walking front and forwards instead of backwards. He came up and was like, hey, what's going on? He said, did someone tell you to preach that sermon today? God? I don't know. Me? I don't know. No, I don't know. And he's like, because I've got a baseball bat in my truck right now. Okay. I don't think it's wrong to carry baseball bats in your truck. And he's like, my plans was after church, I was going to go and teach my brother-in-law a lesson. Oh! Yeah, you're not supposed to have baseball bats in your truck. That's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not have baseball bats in the back of your truck. Oh, man. Yeah, he had plans to teach him a lesson. And his anger and frustration was leading him to this vindictive anger. A type of anger that's even different a little bit than explosive anger or chronic anger. It's this desire to actually go out and to harm someone, perhaps because they have harmed you or someone you care about. And all of us should not think that we're above it. God can tempt any person into really losing their cool and going to some dark areas. One individual that I loved very much, a man that I considered to be a rock in the church, and I would have stood up and said, everyone follow him! He's the leader! He's the great example! He showed up to church one day, beaten down. He came into the church, and I had thought someone died. He sat down with me and he said, Darren, I've really let something get out of hand. What's going on? It's like, well, it's my neighbor. He's really something. We've been fighting and it's continually escalated. And it started off kind of harmless, but it's gotten under my skin quite a bit. The last straw was this last week. I came over to my mailbox. And when I opened up my mailbox, what was in there was disgusting. I said, oh. Well, what did you do? I know a guy. So I called a guy to beat him up. Really? It's like, yeah, then I came to my senses a little bit later and I called him and I called it all off. It's like, wow. Now afterwards, I started thinking two things. First is I thought, how do you know a guy? I don't know, who would I call if I wanted to beat up Johnny? Could I call Larry? Hey Larry, I don't know, who do I call? I don't know who to call to do this. It's like, how do you know a guy? I don't know a guy, but maybe there's guys out there and I just don't realize it, okay? Maybe I've been blind throughout my life, but he knew a guy that could do this for him. Second, I thought, wow, if he was tempted to really get back at someone in a pretty ugly way, am I going to assume that I'll never be tempted? Should you assume that you're above that? Or should we also take warning and realize love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with honesty and transparency and truth? We need to look into our hearts and examine ourselves and make sure that we're doing our best to live a loving life for strong, healthy relationships. Finally, I just want to give you a quick guide of how to resolve the vast majority of all your relationship problems, all your frustrations that come up, and they will. Here you go. 5 easy steps. Just think about it. They're very simple. Number 1. When someone makes you angry, just ask yourself this. Did they actually wrong me? I mean, did they sin against me? Is there a verse in the Bible that they actually broke? Or is this just all me? 80% of the time, it's just Darren. 80% of the time, they cut me off. Oh! They didn't know when to go at a 4-way stop. How come no one knows in Dexter what to do at a 4-way stop? It's easy. Oh man, everyone stops. You stop first, you're supposed to go. But they stop and they wave everyone on. Slow everything down. You don't know how it works. Oh, it's so angry. Did they actually wrong me? Have they sinned against me? No. And to just pause and go, do I have a right to be angry? 80% of the time, I don't. 20% of the time, I do. And then if I look at that 20%, ask myself a second question. Could I just let it go right now and forgive them? They sinned against me, and guess what? I sin against other people. Could I just go, forgive them, and let it just roll off my back? Am I capable of that right now? Has this injured me so badly that I have to respond? 15% of the time. 15 of the 100. No, it's done. Oh, I'm up to like 95% now. Almost every issue, if I just go, did they wrong me? Okay, they wronged me. Can I let it go? I can. Now, there's times in my life when I go, I really can't. It really is under my skin. I just can't just let it go. And number 3, have you tried talking to them about it? Have you just gone over to them calmly and said, hey man, you really upset me the other day. You did this, it wasn't very nice, it was hateful, so you gossiped about me, you lied about me, you stole, whatever it is, you just say it to them. That solves the problem so often. It's these simple things we don't think to do. Did they actually wrong me? Can I let it go? Have I talked to them? The next, if you've talked to them and it's still not resolved, have you tried again with some help? Go find a pastor or a family member and say, hey, I'm trying to resolve, I've got this issue here. I'm not trying to gossip, I'm trying to bring someone else in. Would you be willing to help? Just help us get connected again? Most people are willing to help, especially if it's someone you respect and love. And if you do that, the 5th step is just knock the dust off your feet and move on. It's not worth your anger. It's not worth your frustration. If you do that, it solves almost all your relationship problems. Almost. It's easy in theory, and it's easy to say. If we can just slow down, think it through, and do our best to show the love of Christ. Let's all pray together right now. Lord, I just thank you for today and for letting us to come together to worship you. And I just pray, Lord, right now for everyone here that might be struggling with anger, whether it's explosive or chronic, whether it's vindictive. And Lord, I just pray that you would lead us closer to you. Help us to know your love, the love that surpasses knowledge, the love that you offer when you stretched out your arms and died on a cross for us. I pray that that's the love that we show to others in our life. It's in your Son's name we pray. In the name of Jesus, amen.